Good morning, freedom fighters. It is 7:21 a.m. East Coast time, October 27th, 2024. Today I want to show you some military archive films from the 1950s showing how we spray biological weapons over populations. It is very much legal for the U.S. to do experiments on their own people, which I have hours of videos of paperwork on biological experiments on the people. After Kennedy was assassinated, they no longer needed to inform the public, and this is a film before then. But I want y'all to watch this, and the next film is showing you how they have biological weapons that installs fear into a cat, which I can only imagine what it would do to people. Stand by for some incredible archive videos.
The U.S. Army Chemical Corps Proving Ground, tests were conducted using an F-100 aircraft equipped with an experimental spray device developed by one of the large aviation companies. One purpose of these tests was to establish the feasibility of producing BW aerosols in the most effective particle size range as a low-level line source from high-speed aircraft. Wind tunnel tests had shown that effective aerosols could be produced by discharging the BW agent into a high-velocity airstream. To confirm the wind tunnel test data, an aerial mission was conducted using a BW incapacitating agent. Flying at subsonic speed, the F-100 disseminated the liquid agent along a 15-mile line upwind of the test grid. Data from these tests were used to determine the effective coverage that could be expected with an operational type spray system employing the basic principles of the experimental device. This study showed that one fighter aircraft flying on the deck and dispensing 2 wing tanks of a liquid BW agent would cause infection in more than 50% of the populace in an area 125 miles long by 30 miles deep. 3 large aircraft could release sufficient agent to infect over 50% of the people in an area equivalent to a belt 140 miles wide, extending from New York to Chicago, comparable to the total area of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana.
Mute off. This next one is a biological spray that can induce fear into a feline. He says the cat's nothing wrong with the cat, but I can only imagine what it would do to us. That's a cat. Stand by.
In one laboratory, I saw a striking experiment of the effects of a certain harmless chemical compound. A cat's reaction to the presence of a mouse was just about what you'd expect at first, a typical hunter's instinct. A harmless chemical agent was introduced. The cat's behavior became temporarily frightened, defensive, contrary to his normal behavior.
In today's big picture, you saw volunteers, military as well as our now famous cat Speedy, participating in the Chemical Corps' testing program. At no time were they in danger of suffering any permanent injury, nor did they, if our cat's recent family addition is any proof.
To resist a tyranny, you must be independent of that tyranny for your subsistence. If the government provides your food, your clothing, your shelter, your education, your job, your medical care, your retirement, then the government controls you most effectively indeed. If that government should ever become tyrannical, and they have a way of doing that in history, then you've had it, my friends. We believe that one of the greatest lessons of history that so desperately needs to be relearned by the American people, our forefathers knew it well, is this. Any time a government is powerful enough to give the people everything they want, it is also powerful enough to take from the people everything they've got. You cannot have one without the other.
Not very far from Edgewood, in historic Frederick, Maryland, are the biological warfare laboratories. Here, men and women of science are doing basically the same type of work as in other government, university, and industrial laboratories. A combination of medical and public health research. While I was at Fort Detrick, I was able to follow partway through an experiment to determine the effectiveness of an agent. Volunteers are important to the testing picture. For many years, information has been needed on the effect of a biological warfare attack on man, so that we can have a better understanding of how to defend ourselves against it. The volunteers were a picked group. They had received psychiatric interviews to determine their maturity and reliability, as well as mental outlook. Medical histories and laboratory checks on the volunteers had been extremely stringent. Any history of a chronic disease, any allergic reaction or nervous disorder was a cause for rejection. Volunteers were given the opportunity to drop out at any time. I was to watch the progress of the experiment from the control room. The volunteers had been positioned in cubicles on the outside of the test sphere, a hollow steel ball 40 feet in diameter, in which a cloud of biological warfare agent can be generated. Through a series of controllable valves and a face mask, it was possible to expose a person in each cubicle to a measured volume of biological aerosol from the sphere. I said before I was able to follow part way through the experiment, the final part. As was expected, the volunteers were temporarily incapacitated, but within a short time they were up and around, completely recovered. They had the satisfaction of having played an important part in obtaining information, which would immediately be given to the Public Health Service to bolster our defenses against disease. Research has led to many scientific findings beneficial to mankind, such as a perfected vaccine for controlling industrial anthrax, a usually fatal disease of cattle and sheep. Still another accomplishment, protective devices for the safe handling of disease-causing microorganisms and their harmful products. Just a few of the many byproducts of biological warfare research. Not very far from Edgewood, in historic Frederick, Maryland, are the biological...
Government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. The goal was to understand the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They failed both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. Informed consent means your doctor tells you the risk of the treatment you are about to undergo. In too many cases, informed consent was withheld. Americans were kept in the dark about the effects of what was being done to them. The deception extended beyond the test subjects themselves to encompass their families and the American people as a whole. For these experiments were kept secret, and they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment, and that was wrong. So today, on behalf of another generation of American leaders, and another generation of American citizens, the United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities.
So in my eyes, the different experiments could be happening, and they'll apologize, when I'm an elderly man, if that's the case. So
decades ago, indifference and injustice combined to begin to write one of the most shameful chapters in the history of American medicine. Of course, the infamous project called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. In 1932, America's Public Health Service set out to study syphilis, but it pursued this worthy goal in a manner that was irredeemably cruel. Several hundred African American men the Public Health Service recruited at churches and clinics and farms were used in the study. Most of these men had syphilis. None of them knew their bodies harbored this disease. And then the Public Health Service followed the men's lives, watched how the disease developed, all the while withholding medicine, withholding treatment of any kind for these innocent American citizens. Medical professionals willingly, intentionally let human beings suffer from a treatable and then later a curable illness. These researchers knew that mercury and arsenic compounds could treat the disease, but the Tuskegee men did not receive the medicine. Later, the researchers knew that penicillin could cure the disease, but again, the Tuskegee men did not get the medicine. They didn't get treated until the 40-year study was discovered and stopped amid public outcry in 1972. It was a disgraceful episode for American science. We feel the repercussions still, tremors of distrust that have not yet disappeared. To this day, the Tuskegee study makes some Americans think twice about donating blood or taking their children for vaccinations or signing an organ donor card. But out of this sad incident, we can...
I'm going to pause it right there. I can't stand to hear this man's talk. They have sold their souls to the devil for money. I just want y'all to realize that we should not trust these people. These are pathetic apologies. My grandfather told me to never trust the doctors, never trust a lawyer, and never put your money in the bank. Why would he tell me those things? Because he was burned by these people. My grandfather lived to be 93, and he was very intelligent. One of the prettiest handwritings I've ever seen, and now the kids cannot even read cursive writing because our Bill of Rights is written in it. They'll never know what our Constitution says because they can no longer read cursive writing. I want y'all to realize what is going on here. These pathetic apologies for experimenting on the people. Thank you to the Warriors at 13 minutes. We are being led by lunatics over greed of money. Stand by. I'm going to leave y'all with some very important message. I'm not going to do the screen size here, so it's going to be a little offset here. But very important information to finish this up. They are still experimenting on us, but it's mentally now. And listen to Dr. Robert Malone, how they created all these platforms for us. I think I saved it in the right spot here. Stand by for some incredible information, and I'm going to leave it at the end of this.
Imperialist government organizations throughout Europe that we're the good guys. United States, the good guys. We have this Constitution. We believe in the rule of law. We have a moral fabric. And if we didn't step into the power vacuum left after World War II, then the USSR would, China would, etc. We must act as an imperialist power to fill that power void and use every skill and capability that we can to do so. That has led us into the modern position. Do you know that there's been over 70 regime changes managed by the CIA since the end of World War II? We believe that this is okay. Not only that, we believe that assassination is okay as a way to manage these political structures. And I assert that what we've done is we've normalized these methods, including assassination, to the point where we had an American president that was perceived as a risk to American foreign policy, and he was assassinated. There was a coup against JFK. We've been living with that ever since. And the technology has just gotten more and more and more powerful. Now, I'm running out of time. I'm going to just kind of try to help you to comprehend the world that you are living in now and you're going to live in the rest of your lives. Twitter was developed as a weapon. Facebook was developed as a weapon. They were developed as weapons by the CIA. Google is powered by the CIA. Google was created at Stanford using CIA funding. CIA transferred the technology for Google Maps. That's where it comes from. Okay? So what am I talking about? Here's an example. The example that demonstrates how powerful this tech is what transpired with Arab Spring. Arab Spring was the first clear, unequivocal fifth-generation warfare battle that was won. Repeated regime change, starting with Tunisia. The thing is that with these social media platforms, the tech exists. I know this because I used to support a client that built some of this tech called Behavioral Matrix. With the words that you post on social media or any media platform, they can extract your emotional state. It's all validated using statistics. The words that you use can be used to basically peer into your mind, to extract your emotional state and then map it in a cloud of influence with the other people that you're interacting with on social media. And that cloud, statistically validated cloud of interactions, can be used to pull out those within that sphere that are expressing emotions and thoughts that those that are managing it wish to elevate or suppress. You ever heard of shadow banning? Shadow banning is just part of the toolkit. Okay? Those influencers can be manipulated so that they are more widely circulated and influencing that cloud, or less so. It can be manipulated so that you can pick out voices that are saying, we need to go attack the palace, or we need to all meet here, or whatever the thing is, and then propagated through that entire matrix. You asked for examples, okay? This is how this tech was built as a weapon. It can move populations, and did so, clearly documented during Arab Spring, to result in multiple examples of regime change. Extremely powerful. Grease lightning. What's not to like if you're the CIA? And we didn't have to go shoot missiles. We didn't have to shoot guns. But this tech, remember, if you're interacting on your little social media platform that you call your cell phone, and there's 2, or even better, 3 cell towers within range, you can be precisely triangulated in 3-dimensional space. You can be kinetically targeted with extreme precision, and that database all gets linked to Gorgon Stare. These are the high-resolution satellite imagery technology that exists. So who you are, what you look like, what your vehicle is, who you're associated with, what you're saying on social media, all that stuff is captured and tracked and weaponized. All great, you know, if this is your business. And then along comes UKIP, Nigel Farage, and Brexit. Okay? And oops, it got turned on its head. Cambridge Analytica and the Trump election, oops, got turned on its head. And suddenly, the intelligence community realized they had a problem. And that was embodied in, for instance, in one example, in the Obama lectures that were given at the Hoover Institute, in which he justified the need for censorship and propaganda. Okay? They believe that because of these capabilities and the risks, because underneath the risk of Brexit, the realization of Brexit was Frexit and Grexit and the destruction of the European Union that we've so carefully created. And if the EU falls, NATO falls, and American foreign policy is destroyed. And that's why they feel that it's absolutely necessary and justified to do this. But the problem is, as I said, is the slippery slope. Once they're doing it for that reason, then they're doing it for this reason, then they're doing it because of vaccine hesitancy and anti-vaxxers, then they're doing it for climate change deniers, then they're doing it for people that are in the opposite political party. Dr. Malone, a conservative. Okay? Now, I've run out of time. So much more I can cover. The book is, I think, 130,000 words. Extensive documentation of the technology and the means and the logic and what this is being used to drive the interface with the World Health Organization, with the United Nations. If you haven't heard what Agenda 2030 is, you better figure it out. It's considered an international treaty, by the way. Among other things in Agenda 2030 is the assertion is that it's a fundamental human right to migrate and live wherever in the world you want. Okay? A lot of these things that you encounter, open borders, it just doesn't make sense, right? No, it's codified specifically in Agenda 2030. This is the new world order that you have to deal with. I'm going to be dead. Okay? All I can do is what I'm trying to do right now is to help teach, reach you, and this is a powerful group. What Mises has assembled here, I'm really impressed with. I'm impressed with seeing all of you having these deep intellectual conversations over burgers.
What a great interview with Dr. Robert Malone here. He's putting his everything online to even bring us this information. Some very dangerous people we are up against here. They're doing things to us that I could only imagine how ignorant they truly are mentally. But gold destroys the mind. Gold fever will destroy your mind, your thought, your conscience, everything. These billionaires do not think naturally. All they care about is the control and the money, and it must be stopped. Yes, we are waiting on Judgment Day, but what if it's 200-300 years away still? Just like World War II, they were waiting hell on earth, and they owned everything when it was over. People were fed drugs where they never even fought back, and I just showed you how they can introduce fear. Evil, mad scientists, gold fever, real terms that will bring the world to its knees. Commercial Fisherman standing by. Please let me know if you finish it. Commercial Fisherman out.